Hello friends, welcome to my channel here at Techies. In this video, let me share some important interview questions in Angular 19 and also we can review the answers with some proper use cases and examples. So first let me share what are the questions I am going to cover in this video, then we can see the answers, okay? So we can start from what are the advantages in Angular, then what is standalone component, what is zoneless change detection, what is defer view, what is control flow template, what is resource API, what is services, what is standalone template, what is the use of app config, how to use HTTP client in standalone template, what is Angular forms, when we can choose template driven form, what are the key elements in reactive forms, what is form builder in reactive forms, how to use multiple validators in form control. It comes under the reactive forms concept. Then what is signal? Then what is computed function in signal? What is linked signal? What is the difference between linked signal and computed function? What is effect function in signal? And next, what is property binding? What is event binding? What is two-way binding? What is pipes? What is directives? What is routing? What is Angular card? What is router level render mode? What is lazy loading? And how to pass the parameters via routing. What are the state management options in Angular? What is NGRX? Why we have to use NGRX effects? Can we have multiple NGRX store? What is RXJS? What is HTTP interceptor? What is signal model? And what is signal input and output? What are the signal queries? What's the difference between view child and content child? What is HMR? And how to implement environmental setup in Angular, then how to get the disabled form control value in reactive forms, what is material UI, what is ng content projection, what are the new features in Angular 19, what is zoneless change detection, what is server-side rendering, how to deploy Angular application, what are the commonly used Angular CLI commands. So these are the 50 questions we are going to cover in this video. So first let me start from why Angular UI. So this is a kind of what are the advantages of Angular. So in this market we have several UI technologies, okay, for developing the UI applications. So if you talk about the Angular, it provides custom and reusable component in order to we can increase the productivity and also we can maintain the code consistency, and it is supporting for different unit testing framework. Then our testing is easy and code reduction and good maintainability, high compatibility and performance is high. And also it is the open source and it is provided by Google. They are providing the long-term support. So these are the common advantages for the Angular application. We can move on to the next question. What is standalone component? A standalone component can function independently without requiring a model, and it is released from Angular 14 to make Angular application more flexible and modular. So in Angular, we have two different types of component. One is model-based component and another one is standalone component. So the model-based component, when we are creating the component itself, we have to create for one of the model and it will completely depend on the particular model only, okay? At the same time, this standalone component, it's not depend on any of the model. It will work completely independently, okay? So let me show you from the code. I have one created application. Let me take this app component, okay? So normally all the components are declared using this at component directive. Here also same. And then we have this selector. And in our standalone components, we have this import section, okay? So if you want to import something that we can include it here. So if you are using the model based component, from the model we can do this import. and other things like a style URL and a template URL are same. And one more thing, if you are using Angular version 16 or 17, so if you are creating any standalone component, you can see one flag that is standalone. Okay, the value also should be true. So currently we are in Angular 19. So in the Angular 19, they have marked the default component as standalone. That means if there is a no flag also, we can consider that is the standalone component. So in this situation, you may have a question whether it is possible to use model-based component in Angular 19. Definitely yes. So in that scenario, we will have the model and also we need to include the flag standalone. The value should be false. Okay. So we are getting the error. The reason is this import will be supported for the standalone component only. Okay. Since I marked this is false, that's why I got the error. So anyway, let me remove this one. It's not needed. Okay. So we can move on the next question. What is zoneless change detection? In Angular, change detection run automatically within the Angular zone. So however, if you want to optimize the performance by reducing unnecessary change detection cycle, you can use zoneless change detection. So in our Angular, we have a file zone.js. Okay, so that basically handle the change detection. So however, it is creating some performance issue also. For the solution point of view, from the Angular 18, they introduce a new feature that is zoneless change detection. Okay, so still that feature in the experimental mode only, it's not a stable. So by enabling that feature, we need to include one provider. Let me show you from the code. So in our app.config, see, provide experimental zoneless change detection. Okay, and also we can remove that zone.js. Okay, and additionally for handling the change detections we can use signal features. Okay, so that we can discuss later. So we can move on to the next question. What is defer view? This is the new feature from Angular for improving the application performance. It's a kind of lazy loading. Okay, so in Angular already we have a concept lazy loading. So that means any file or a component, it should be loaded whenever it's really needed. From the initial load, it's not going to be considered. Okay, so the same way only the defer view also work. So it's having some conditions like after triggering some of the events or after some time derivation or some logical conditions matching. So based on that, we can load the content. Okay, since it is not considered in the initial load, obviously it will increase the application performance. So let me show you from the code, then you will get some better understanding. So in my one of the examples, see, we have this defer block. Okay, and in this example, I have a condition. So there is a variable was there is load content. Once the value is changed into true, so then only I will load this particular content, this dev. Okay, and additionally you can see some blocks that is placeholder and loading error section. So let me tell you one by one. So the placeholder text is here based on some conditions only we will load this content, right? Meantime, if you want to showcase some placeholder text, so that time we can use this block. Okay, and then loading. So in this area we can use the loading spinner and then error block. By loading this content, if there is any error, obviously it will comes under the error block. We can include some custom error text. Okay, so conditions we have a different examples. Maybe I can show you. So all are in the commanded mode. See, so in this example I just include a timer. The particular content will be loaded after 1000 milliseconds only. Then viewport, it's a kind of initial load, and in this example it's a interaction. So if there is any interaction in this header text, then only our content will be loaded. So in this top I have a header text, say identifier I have included. If there is any interaction in this area, so then the content should be loaded. That is the expectation here. And similarly hover and immediate. So we can include all types of event and also we can use some logical conditions. In this example, there is a variable. If the value is changed into true, then we are showing this content. Okay. Okay, this is the way our defer view is working. We can move on to the next question. What is built-in control flow template? So this is the new feature introduced from Angular 17 for writing this if else switch and for cases. So already we have the directives like ngIf and ngFor and ngSwitch. For the replacement, Angular introduced this new control flow templates that actually improve the performance. From the Angular 17, it will be available. There is no additional imports are needed for using those syntax. So let me show you from the code. So here you can see this if condition. Okay. So similarly, we can use else and else if also. Maybe I can show you. So in this block, we can have some content. Okay. For the example, I just included one H1 tag. That's it. So similarly, we can use for and switch. Let me show you the for also. See. So we are generating the loop, but the mandatory thing is if you are using the for, we have to include this track section. It's a kind of unique value. Okay. So the same way we can write for the switch also. Okay. So we can move on the next question. What is Resource API? This is the new feature introduced from Angular 19 for handling the external services. So still it's in the preview mode only. We can expect stable version in the upcoming releases. Okay. So in our Angular, already we have an HTTP client for handling the external API. So similarly, they have introduced a new feature that is Resource API. Okay. So if you're looking for the difference, this Resource API based on the signal and it's providing inbuilt status tracking mechanism and simplifying state management. And also it is providing inbuilt functions for handling the loader functionality. Okay. So let me show you from the code. So normally, if you are consuming any external services from our service side, we will inject the HTTP client and also we will include one provider in our app.config side. Then we can consuming the API based on the endpoint. Okay. So since we are using this resource API, we no need to use this HTTP client. So this is the example. Okay. Inside the resource, we have the loader function. So in this loader function using this fetch, we can pass our API endpoint. Okay. So similarly, if you want to pass any parameter also using this request, we can pass. And additionally, we can include the loader also. So anyway, I have done the separate video. I will include video link also in the description. If required, you can watch. Okay. And one more thing, we will get our response in the signal format. Okay. So then directly we can use for the state management side also. Right. We can move on to the next question. What is services? The services are the classes that can be defined using injectable decorator. Okay, so the thing is we can create a single service that can be injected in the different components. So normally in the real-time examples, we will consume the external services from our service side. Then we can inject those services in our component side in order to we can share the data in the different components. Okay, so let me show you from the code. This is my one of the service invoice services. Okay, so you can see it is defined using this injectable decorator. Okay, and this is my class invoice service, that is our service name also. And if you look at here in this constructor, we have injected this HTTP client. So using that we can consuming the external services. The next thing is we can inject these services in the different components. So that also we have done. Let me show you. If you look at here, I have two components. One is list and another one is add invoice. So see here, so in this constructor, I just injected this invoice services. Okay, since I have injected, then I can access all the functions present in our service side. So in our example, so in this load invoice function, I have subscribed this function get all invoice. Similarly, in this delete function, we have subscribed this delete invoice. Okay, so the same service only I have injected in this add invoice component also. See here also it's injected. So that's why we have mentioned using these services, we can share the data between the different components also. Okay. So we can move on to the next topic. Okay, what is standalone template? This is the new application template introduced from Angular 18. From Angular 19 onwards, this is the default template. Okay, so let me tell you. So basically, when we are creating the application, we will execute the command ng new and our application name. Okay, up to Angular 18, if you are executing this command, it will generate the template, model based template only. Okay, if you want to have the standalone template, we need to include one tag that is standalone. From Angular 19, they have marked the default template as standalone template. That means whenever you are executing the normal command ng new and application name, it will generate application with the standalone template. The main difference is it don't have an app model. Okay, so instead of that handling the configuration related stuff, it's having this app.config. So let me show you from the application side. Okay, this is one of the standalone template. Okay, so if you look at here, you have this app.config only. There we can include the providers. Okay, and similarly in our routing also we will have this app.routes file. So if you look at the model based template, there you can see app routing model, but here it is having just app.routes file only. And these routes are injected here in our app.config side. Provide router and the route files are included here. And also whatever components we are seeing here, all are the standalone components only. So we have this import section. So whenever you are creating any new components also, it will create it as the standalone component only. Okay. So we can move on to the next question. What is the use of app config? First of all, let me tell you, this is the file only available in the standalone component. Okay. So we can see the notes in Angular app config refers a configuration file, okay, which store the settings and details of our application, including things like providers, routes, and key information that defines how our application should be assembled and run. Okay, and it is acting as the central hub for managing your application configuration data. Let me show you from the application side. If you look at here, so in this provider section, I have included one provider. This is for enabling the zoneless change detection, and defaultly we can see this provide router. Okay, it's for handling the routing, and there is a provide animation asynchronous. It's part of the material UI, and provide HTTP client. For using the HTTP client, then make sure we need to inject this provider. So if you look at the model based template, there we have an HTTP client model. So in our standalone side, we are supposed to use this provider. Okay, and for including the interceptors, we can include like this with the interceptors. So in this array side, we can include multiple interceptors. Okay, and for registering the store, we can register like this. Okay, and similarly for registering the AFX and store DevTools, we have to do like this. Okay, and additionally, if you are installing any external package also, they may provide the different providers that we supposed to include. So in this example, you can see this environmental NGX mask. This is for the NGX mask library. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. How to use HTTP client in standalone template? Okay, so we all know HTTP client is used for handling the HTTP services like get, put, post, and delete. So normally in the model based template, we will have one HTTP client model that we supposed to import in our app.model. Since in our standalone template, there is no app.model, we have this app.config. Already we have discussed the same thing. We need to include this provider, provide HTTP client. And if there is any HTTP interceptors that we can include like this. Okay. Once this step is completed, we can inject our HTTP client. It may be in our service side or a component or in the NGRX effect side. Wherever it's needed, we can inject and we can use. Okay. We can move on to the next question. What is Angular form? The Angular forms are used to collect and manage the user input. Okay, so it provides features like data binding, validation, and asynchronous validations. Angular provides two types of form. One is template-driven form, and another one is reactive forms. So now you may have a question: which one is better? Like when we can use template-driven or reactive forms? So the thing is, your form is very simple. It don't have much complex logics or validations. Then we can directly go with this template-driven form. Okay. But if you are handling a complex data like a object and array, and you need to include more validations, then the better choice is reactive forms. Okay. So in this reactive forms, we will write most of the codes from the TS side, like in our coding side. Okay. From there, we can define our forms and we can include the validations. And if you want to change any property, everything we can handle. So in our HTML side, we need to include the HTML controls. Then we need to map that shit. So we can move on to the next question. When can we choose template driven form? So already we discussed, let me include some more points. Template driven form is easier and simplest method to build form in Angular. It makes use of directives to control the component state and logic. The thing is, we will write our validations and most of the things from the HTML side only. We will have minimal changes from our TS side. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What are the key elements in reactive form? So in reactive forms, we have three important elements. The first one is form control. It allows you to manage the value, validation, and state of an individual form input. Okay. And the second one is form group. A form group is a class in Angular that groups form control together. It is a key part of reactive forms. Okay. So here I just mentioned we are grouping the form control similarly. So inside the form group, we can have a nested form group and also the form array. And the final one is form array. So the form array aggregates the value of each child form control into an array. So let me show you from the code. So if you are using reactive forms, the first thing is make sure we need to import the reactive form model. Okay. So we have done already. And then I'm just defining one form. Okay. I can give the name as test form. So we can define our form using form group. Form group. So inside the form group, we can include the form control. Maybe I can include code form control. So in this form control, we can include the properties and default values, and also we can include the validations. Okay. For this example, I just provided the default value as empty. Okay. And then adding one validation, validators.required. That's it. Okay. Similarly, I can include the another form control. So here also I just added the default value as empty, added one validation. That is the required validation. Okay. Okay. So we have seen this form group and form control. So the final one is we can have one form array, new form array. And default we are providing one empty array. Okay. We just defined one basic form. Okay. We can move on to the next question. So the next question, what is form builder? The form builder is an Angular service that help you to create the form by generating instance of form controls, form groups, and form array. It is shortcut that reduces the amount of code needed to build forms. Okay, so let me show you from the code. So we can take the same example. Okay, so the first thing is make sure we need to inject the form builder. See in this constructor we already injected this form builder. Okay, and I just defined another one form using this form builder. So the form name is invoice form. Okay, and if you look at here, we just used this dot builder dot group. Okay, so in my previous example we have directly used this form group. So now we have this group. The thing is both are same only. Okay, so basically the form builder provides three instances. Okay, one is group and another one is control and another one is array. These three instances are same as our form control, form group, and form array only. Okay. So other things are like adding the default values and adding the validators and everything is same only. We can move on to the next question. How to use multiple validators in form control? Okay, so the answer is very simple. By using validators.compose function, we can include more than one validation. So I added one example also. Here I included two validation. One is minimum length and another one is required. Let me show you from the code also. We have this customer name, right? So here I can include one more validation. Validators.compose. So it's a kind of array. Okay. So we can move our actual validation here. Okay. And adding another validation, the minimum length should be 5. Okay. So the same way we can include some other validation also if required. Okay. So we can move on to the next question. What is angular signal? A signal is a wrapper around a value that notified interested consumers when that value changes. It's just like our observable, then signal can contain any value. That means we can use any data type. You can read the signal value by calling its getter function, which allows Angular to track where the signal is used. Okay. So let me show you some small examples from our code. So here I am just declaring one variable name nt. Okay. This is the normal variable. Okay. So that I can directly bind it here. Okay. So if I am look at in the UI side, so here you can see this text nt. Okay. So now I am making this variable into signal. Okay. It's very simple. Signal. Okay. And this signal belongs to our Angular slash core only. Okay. So now if I look at here, I'm getting kind of array. Okay. Okay. So now if I look at my UI, see I'm getting the values like this. So the thing is, if you have a signal variable, we cannot directly get the value. For getting the value, we need to use the function symbol. Okay. So now it looks fine. Okay. And similarly, we can use the different data types also. Let me show you. So in this current example, we not provided any data type. So whatever value we provided, based on that, the data type is confirmed. Okay. So similarly, if I provide username, okay, and a signal, if I want to define the data type, then that I can include. Okay. See now it's fine. And similarly, salary, maybe I can use integer. Okay. Integer in the sense here we have to use number. So the same way we can use array or object based on our requirement we can include. And the next thing is we can modify the signal values. For that we have two options. Okay. One is we can completely replace the value by using set function, and another thing is we can update. Let me show you both. So in this show content function, I think it is mapped with one of the, in this click event it's mapped. Okay. So here I am just changing the value is dot name dot set errata keys, right? So now once I clicked, see it is got changed. So similarly we can do the update also. Okay. So anyway, I have done the separate video for the signals, so you can refer that for getting the more information. So now we can move on the next question. What is computed function? The computed function also comes under the Angular signals. It takes function as parameter. The function return the computed value from the signals. Okay. The computed value is read only. Okay. So let me show you from the code. So here we have this salary, right? I can have another one signal. So default value I just provided 1. Okay. So the variable name I just provided total. Okay. And I am using this computed syntax. So let me format it. And then I am just displaying this value into the HTML side. and here we can use total. So the thing is, in this total also I just added this function because so this computed function returns some value that also in the format of signal only. Okay, that's why we have added this function symbol. That's it. So let me check in the browser side. Okay, we have a value is 20. So now let me change one of the signal value. So what I'm going to do in our show content function itself, just updating this count. Okay, count update data plus 1. Okay, now we included this update also. So initially it's showing 20. Once I clicked see 40. So based on the count variation, this computed is happened automatically. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What is linked signal? The linked signal is the new feature introduced from Angular 19. It is a special type of signal that automatically updates its value whenever another source signal changes. So it's almost similar to our computer, but it's having some difference. Let me show you from the code, then you will get some better idea. So we can take this example. So the same way, we have two signals. Okay, one is quantity and another one is price. And then for calculating the total, we are using this linked signal. Okay, so in this linked signal, we have a property source. So there we need to specify one of the signal. So whenever the source value gets changed, automatically the calculation will be happen. That's our logic here. Okay, so first we can see how it is working. So initial value it's showing us 10. So now if I'm changing the source value, see it's changed into 20. Okay, it is working fine. This is almost similar our computed function, but it is having some difference. So I have noted there are three difference, okay, comparing to this linked signal and the computed function. For explaining this, I have included this computed function also here. See, I added a new variable, total one. It's from computed, and another one is linked signal or variable name is total. So we binded both the values in our HTML side. You can see the total and another one is total one. So in this output also you can see 20 and 30. Maybe if I provide 5, we can expect the value as 50. Okay, so we got the same output only. Here the first difference is in this linked signal, in this property, we will get our output in the signal format, but it is readable and also writable. We can modify this value. Okay, so if I'm changing the value total, so here I have this set and also this update function. Okay, at the same time in this computed function also I'm having a variable. So here also our value available in the signal format only, but it is only read only. We cannot modify the value. Okay, whenever our source signal changed, the value will be automatically calculated and updated, but manually we cannot modify the value or we cannot assign any of the values. So if I'm trying here in this total one, there is no set function and there is no update. Okay, so in very simple words, it's a kind of read only. In the linked signal it is writable. Okay, that is the okay. The second difference is we can track the previous value, but it is not possible in our computer section. So you can see in this linked signal we have a computer section. There we just included this previous and new data and also added the calculation section, right? So now if I go to the console, maybe I can clear everything. Okay, so in the first time I just providing 2. Okay, see, I'm getting my previous value as 2. See, I'm getting my current value as 2, and this is my previous value. Source is 5 and the value is 50. So now I'm changing this into 3. See now, this is my recent value. Okay, and my previous value is 2 and 20. This is possible only from the linked signal. Okay, there is a second difference. And the last difference is In this calculation, we can apply some certain conditions. Maybe we can consider this example, okay? So in this example, this user object is my source, okay? Here the thing is, whenever this user object is modified, the calculation will happen. That is our normal scenario. So here I'm just checking another condition. I'm just considering this calculation when this first name is varying. Okay, so this is the object. So anyway, we have a first name and last name. I'm not worrying about this last name. Whenever the first name is changed, so that time only I want to update this calculated value. So in this example, based on this object, I'm calculating the username. I have a first name and last name in our object, and then calculating this username. So we can check from our UI side also. One is first name, another is one. So if I click so now it is changed. Okay, so now I'm trying to change this last name only. See, it's not varied. Maybe if I'm including test one, so now it is changed both. Okay, so this kind of additional checking that we can include in the linked signal only. Okay, okay, now we can move on the next question. What's the difference between linked signal and a computed function? So the same topic only we just now covered. So we can move on the next one. What is effect function in signal? In Angular signals, the effect function is the mechanism that allows you to execute a piece of code whenever signal value changes. Essentially, it is acting as the listener that runs callback function whenever any signal it reads, it's updated. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What is property binding? Property binding in Angular help you to set values for properties of HTML elements or directives. So in very simple words, in HTML elements, dynamically we can change the property by using this property binding concept. The syntax is square bracket. Okay, so let me show you from the code. So here we can take this input control. Okay, so it's a checkbox. It's having a property checked so that we have binded dynamically using this property binding concept. This is the syntax. Okay, and we need to pass in this way only. Actual data type is boolean only, boolean or string. We have to pass like this. Okay, so we can move on the next question. What is two-way binding? The two-way binding in Angular is a feature that allows data to be exchanged between component class and its template in both directions. This means the changes made to the view are automatically reflected in the model. Same way, whenever changes happened in the model, it will be reflected in the UI side. Okay, so let me show you. This is one of the example for the two-way binding. The syntax is the combination of event binding and property binding. So the property binding already we discussed. This is the syntax for event binding. It's a kind of combination, and we have a variable title. So that already we have declared, right? The title is Angular 18 tutorial, right? So if you look at in the UI side, okay, see in this UI side, in this text box, we are able to see this Angular 18 tutorial text. Okay. So now I am trying to change the value from the model side. Then it should be reflected in our UI, that is the expectation. So in this button, we just binded on even through the function only. I'm changing this title. Maybe I will show you from the code. So this is my button and we have binded this change title function. From this function only, we are updating Angular 18 full tutorial. Okay, once I clicked, see, it is changed. Okay, so similarly, whenever I am changing this value from the UI side, that also automatically reflected in our model side. That is the expectation. Maybe for checking this one, I can bind this value in one of the H2 control. Okay, title. So here itself I can include. Okay, one H2 tile. So here we can see this text. So now if I'm changing this one, see, automatically reflected there, right? Also when I click this one, see. So this is the way our two-way binding will work. So we can move on to the next question. What is interpolation? So interpolation is a way to bind data from our component to HTML template. The syntax is double curly braces. Okay. So inside the curly braces, we can do the calculation and we can use the pipes, parameter, etc. Let me show you from the code. Okay. We can come from the top. See, first we are binding this title one and then subtitle and today date salary. For doing this binding, I have used this double curly braces. It's a kind of just a data binding. Okay. And additionally, you are able to see this syntax. This is for pipe. Pipe is nothing but the formatter. Pipe is nothing but a formatter. So we have different types of inbuilt pipes. Okay. Similarly, we can create some custom pipes also. Inbuilt pipes mainly for changing the cases like uppercase, lowercase, arranging the date format, currency, and number format. Okay. Similarly, if we have an object, we can get in the JSON format. Okay. And additionally, in these pipes, we can pass the parameter. For example, I am using the currency pipe. Okay. Then I need a currency symbol based on the country. So then I can pass the country value as parameter. Similarly, in this date, we have a different formatting, right? So maybe I need a date, month, year format or a year, month, date format. Whatever format is additionally needed, that I can pass as the parameter. So if you look at it here, Angular for beginners and Angular for beginners, there are a common text. One is we added this pipe uppercase and another one is lowercase. Okay, so the same thing we can see it here, uppercase and lowercase. And this is the date format and the currency symbol. Here I just included euro. Maybe if I change this into India, see, oh sorry, I need to include the currency short code INR. See now, it's a currency symbol. Similarly, for US USD, that is the currency code. So then we will get this dollar as symbol. Okay. So this is actually pipes, and these pipes we can use inside the interpolation. Okay, that's it. We can move on to the next topic. Yeah, the pipes. So already we discussed. Anyway, we can see this definition. Pipes are functions that is used to transform data in template. In general, pipes are pure functions that don't cause side effects. Angular has several helpful built-in pipes you can import and use in our components. You can also create the custom pipes. So we have used some inbuilt pipe, right? So if you are using this inbuilt pipe, make sure we need to import common model in our component side because we are nowadays using standalone component. For using these features, then make sure we need to import this common model. And also, if you are using two-way binding, make sure we need to import this form model. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What is directive? A directive is a function that extends the functionality of HTML elements. Directives are used to add behavior to the elements such as managing form styles and list. Okay, we have a n number of inbuilt directives such as ng for, ngif, ng switch, ng style, ng class. Okay, so similarly we can create our own custom directives also. Okay, so it's simply changing the behavior of HTML elements. Like if you consider this ng for based on some group of data or else the array of data, we can generate the new element. Similarly using this ngf based on the values, we can show or hide. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What is routing? So routing is a mechanism that allows user to navigate between views in single page application. Okay, it enables user to change what they see without reloading the entire page. Okay, so first of all, Angular is the single page application. We have a n number of components. Okay, here we can move from one component to another component. So at that time, there is no page reload is happened. Okay, for this page navigation, or else we can say the component view navigation time, we can use this routing. Okay, for handling the routing, we have a separate file. app.routes. So there we can define our own routes. So in our example, we have defined n number of routes. So it's a kind of array. Here we can create n number of objects for the individual routes. So in this object, we can define our routes. The first thing is path. There we can mention our path name for the route. Okay. So the same value only we supposed to use in the link. Then mapping with the respective components. So additionally, we can see this can activate or can activate child load component. Okay. And in this scenario, we are able to see this load component. Okay. This is for doing the lazy loading. And this can activate, it's for implementing the authorization. So anyway, that I will cover little later. See. Similar to this can activate, we have this can activate child, can deactivate, and children. That is the child routing. Okay, so this is one of the main route. It's a customer. So in the customer, I have a child routes. Add, edit. So those are the items I have added as the child routes. Okay, and similarly, we can handle the 401 navigation. If none of the are matched, then we can map one specific component. It will be simply redirected to the particular page. So the value we need to provide the double star. Similarly, if you not provided any value, you can see the default one, right? So it will be loaded in the initial load itself. So in my example, I'm not provided any route, right? Here I just mapped the component is home. So if I'm not provided any value in this area, then automatically it takes my home component. Similarly, if I'm changing this into about, then I have to provide like this. So, okay. So this is the way our route is working. We can move on to the next question. What is Angular cards? In Angular cards are classes that control access to different part of an application. They determine if a user can navigate to a page or perform any actions. Okay. It's very simple. Okay. Again, it comes under the routing side. We can consider one of the example. Okay. Maybe I can take this customer. Okay. If I'm added a code up to like this, whenever I entered this value customer, so in my URL side, I am able to access this menu. Okay. So just assume one scenario. If I am not a logged in user, okay, currently I'm in the login page. Okay. So now if I'm trying to access the same customer page, it's supposed to say you are unauthorized access and again needs to be redirected into our login page. Once our login is succeeded only, I have to allow for this customer page. So applying this kind of restriction in the menu navigation time, we can use these cards, Angular cards. Okay. So let me show you from one of the example. The first thing is we need to define our card. Then we have to map like this, can activate something like this. Okay. So if you look at the card side, the code should be like this only. So basically it will return the value as true or false only. Okay. And here you can see this can activate function. We inherited this class. Similarly, we have three more classes that I tell you a little later. So before that, see, we just injected our router and our master services. Okay. From the services, we have a function is logged in. Okay. If it is true, then we are returning true. The else scenario, we are showing this alert message and also we are navigating into a login page. And also we simply returning a true. Okay, so end of the day this function will return the boolean value true or false only. Okay, if it is returning true, then we are allowing. If it is false, then we are doing the restriction. Okay, if you look at here, can activate, right? Similarly, we have a can activate child function, can deactivate, and another one is can load. So can activate means it is applied for the full route. Okay, if this auth card returning true only, we will allowed for this main menu. And another one is can activate child. That means uh, I may have the access for this main menu. When I am accessing the sub menu, it will check for the another route card. If it is returning the false, I'm unable to access the child menus. This restriction is applied only for the child routes. Okay. In this scenario, we have a two child. Okay.
and then can deactivate. So can deactivate mainly used for the forms. You may enter some values, maybe you are in between, okay? So mistakenly you may press the back button. So that times it's directly allowed means whatever data you already entered in the forms, that data could be vanished, okay? So in that scenario, we are just providing an alert to the user and saying you are entered some values. If you move to the different page, your data are going to be lost. Do you want to continue? If they are providing yes, then we can proceed further for the navigation. Otherwise, we can just block in the same page itself. That kind of functionality we can use this deactivate. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What is router level render mode? A feature introduced in Angular 19 that allows developers to specify how each individual routes in an application should be rendered, whether on the server side or a pre-render during the build time or a client side rendering. It's very simple, okay. In our Angular, we have a concept is called server side rendering. So normally we have a client side rendering. If required, we can enable the server side rendering also, okay. So by using this functionality, from the route itself, we can define how our route should be rendered, like a server side or a client side. That kind of from our router, from our router, from our route itself, we can define how our route should, from the route itself, we can define how our component should be rendered, like a server side or a client side. Okay, we can move on to the next question. What is lazy loading in Angular? Lazy loading in Angular is a technique that loads only the required components or models when they are needed. So this can improve the performance and speed of our application. Okay, it's a kind of performance improvement option. Okay, so again, this one also comes under the routing side. Maybe I can show you one of the example. We can take this contact. Okay, so if you look at the other components, we just provided this path and directly component. Okay, but in this contact only, instead of the component, we have used load component and we provided the component path and component class also. Okay, so for explaining this one, let me go to the UI. I'm in the login page only. I'm just refreshing. If you look at here, we can see the complete folder structure. Here you can see all the components are loaded. So as of now, I am not yet logged in. Okay, still it's loaded all the components. It's a kind of steady application. I don't have much data, that's why it's loaded very quickly. So otherwise, it may take more time for the initial load. Okay, but if you look at here, there is no contact component. The contact component will be loaded once we are entered in the contact menu only. Maybe I can show you. Okay, now I just logged in. Still this contact is not loaded. Once I click to this contact, just to see it here. See, now our contact component is loaded. Okay. So the concept is very simple. Any component or a model, it should be loaded when there is really required. Okay. So from the initial load, we are not considering those components or models or any files. It should be considered whenever it's really needed. In our scenario, when I click this contact link only, this component is needed. So next we can move on the another question. What are the state management options in Angular? Angular offers multiple approaches to state management, each with its own strength. So the first one is services with observable. It's very simple and effective for the small applications. Okay. And the second one is signal. It's modern and it's used for reactive state management. So in the future, we can expect more improvement in the signal area. Okay. And the final one is NGRX. It's the third party library and it's using the Redux pattern, but it is suitable for the large and complex applications. Okay, so if you are using the small applications, you may need to write more codes. Actually, it's not that much useful, but if you come to the large applications, it will provide the major role. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What is NGRX? Just now we discussed. So NGRX is an open source framework that help you to build reactive applications in Angular. So NGRX handle the below activities, okay? Managing the state, including global and local state, isolate the side effects to promote cleaner component architecture, manage entity collections, integrate with the Angular router, and provides developer tooling, okay? For regarding this NGRX, I have done the separate course. I will include video link also in the description. You can refer that. We can move on to the next question. What is NGRX effects? Effects are long-running services that listen to an observable of every action dispatched from the store. So basically, it is segregating our services from our components. So normally in our Angular application, we used to inject our services in our component. Okay, since we are using this NGRX pattern, it's not going to done directly. So instead of that, those service calling all done through the effects only. Okay, so let me explaining from the NGRX diagram, then you will get some better idea. So this is the NGRX pattern diagram. Okay, so we have a centralized store, whatever data we supposed to maintain in the state, so that we can keep in our store. Okay. From the component only, we used to dispatch the actions. Actions are just like events. Okay. It may be a initial load or a button click or some other actions. Okay. And through this action, we can pass some parameter also. So once we dispatch the action, it will goes to reducer side, and based on the actions, a reducer will modify the store. Okay. Similarly, for getting the information from our store, we have a concept selector. Based on the selector, we can get whatever data available in the store that we can get and display in our component side. We can bind or display anything. Okay. So additionally, we can see this effect section, right? From the effect section only, we used to call the services. Here you can see one block. For handling the services all done through this effects only. Okay, here the flow is whenever action is dispatched from the component, it will check from our effects whether we have any matched type. If it is there, then it will execute the services and it will get one response, and finally this effect will dispatch one new action. So in this new action, we can pass the response value from our services, then it will go to the reducer. From the reducer, it will modify our store. Okay, then in the store we have the updated data. We can move on to the next question. Can we have multiple store in NGRX? Yes, it is possible, but better we can have the single store. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What is RXJS? RXJS stands for Reactive Extension for JavaScript. This library helps you to write asynchronous and event-based programs. It uses observable operators and other types to handle the sequence of events. It have the main areas. One is observable, then observer, subscription, operators, subject. So the first one is observable. In the real-time scenario, whenever we consuming the HTTP services, we will get our response in the observable format only. Okay, it contains some value. So if you want to access the observable value, make sure we need to subscribe. Okay, so in the real-time example, from the component only, we used to do the subscription. And the next one is observer. It's listen to value from observable by using callback function. So that's why in our component only we used to subscribe. Whenever any changes happened in our observable, it will be automatically reflected in the all subscribed area. That means all the observers. Okay. And subscription, already I have mentioned, if you want to access the observable, make sure we need to subscribe. And similarly, we can do the unsubscription also. Okay. And then operators. Operators enable functional programming style operations on collections such as map, filter, and reduce. We have a number of operators. Anyway, I have done the separate video for this RxJS. Okay. I have included the video link in the description. You can get more information. And the final one is subjects. Subjects also a kind of observable. Okay. Based on the performing action, we have different types. Okay. And we can see some more additional points in this RxJS. RxJS help you to compose asynchronous or a callback based code. It is a reactive extension to JavaScript. It has better performance, modularity, and debuggable call stacks. It is mostly backwards compatible. Okay, so we can move on to the next question. What is HTTP interceptor? The HTTP interceptor are classes that implement the HTTP interceptor interface. They can be used to perform various tasks related to HTTP request and response, such as adding headers, handling errors, modifying the request or response data, logging, authentication, etc. So in the real-time example, we can say if you are consuming the secured service, make sure we need to pass the secured token. Okay. Through the header, we can pass the security token. Okay. So that we can globally handle using this HTTP interceptors. Okay. Let me show you one example. Okay. If you look at here in this provider section, we have included this interceptor. Okay. And my interceptor is token interceptor. If you look at here, so this is the HTTP interceptors implementation. First thing is we have implemented this interface. Okay. And then we are just initiating one header. Okay. From this header, we are passing this authorization token. Okay. And finally, we are returning. And once I included in our provider section, it will be passed for all the HTTP request. Okay. So we no need to mention in the all individual requests like so in this application I have n number of services, right? So in the invoices and master everywhere. So even though I'm not passed the token, since I have included this HTTP interceptor, the header value is passed. Okay. So similarly, we can do the logging and some other actions also. That's why I have mentioned in this from the answer itself. Okay. So we can move on to the next question. What is signal model? The signal model is the new feature introduced from Angular 19. Okay. It's a kind of signal based two-way binding. Okay. So already we discussed what is two-way binding. It's almost similar, but there is some difference. Let me show you from the code. This is my one of the example. Okay. Here I just declared one variable username. Okay. And the data type is string and provided some default value. Additionally, you can note this keyword model. Okay. So this model belongs to our NGRX core only. So since we are using this model, this variable as the signal only. Okay, it's a not normal element. Whenever any changes happen, it will be automatically reflect wherever we have used. So if you look at my HTML side, we just binded this one username. So look at here. It's a kind of signal only. That's why we are used to this function. So similarly, I have one object also. See this user object our signal model. Okay. Here I have two properties. One is first name and another one is last name. Right. And in the binding time, see, I have used this function symbol and included this JSON pipe. Okay. And another example, I just binded all those objects in this normal HTML elements. Okay. If you look at here in this input control, see, and we have included this two-way binding. And normally we will use to include our variable name. Since we are having this signal based object, then we are using this up to this function. Then only we are specifying the individual variable name. Okay. So if you're looking for the advantage, like since we are using this signal model, the change detection all done through the signal itself. Okay. So already we have seen one topic, zoneless change detection. So as of now in our Angular application, zone.js only handling all those change detection. Since we are removing this zone.js by using the signal based variable, the change detection happen through the signal itself. Okay. So we can move on to the next topic. Okay, what is signal input and signal output? So in our Angular, we have at input and at output. So at input is used for transferring data from parent component to child component. Similarly, this output is used for transferring data from child to parent. Okay, so the same thing only from Angular, they introduced a new option that is signal input. So whatever our existing at our input is doing the same actions only this signal input also will do. Since it is a signal based one, we can use the other features of signal. So same thing is applicable for the output also. If you look at the notes, signal input is a new feature that allows components to receive data from parent components using reactive and a signal based approach. And same way for the output signal, it is refers to a mechanism used to within the child component send data or events to its our parent component. That's it. Okay. So we can move on to the next item. What are the signal queries? Signal input, signal output, signal content child, signal content children, then signal view child and signal view children. Okay. So already we have at input, at output, at content child, at view child and view children. So the same way we are just replacing with the signals. So all the values we will get in the format of signal. So we can use all inbuilt features of signal. That's it. Okay. So we can move on to the next question. What is the difference between view child and content child? Okay. First in this view child. So accessing elements directly defined in the current components template. Okay. Just assume if you have an one component, it may have a different elements, right? By using this view child, we can access the particular element inside the component. Okay. It is used for manipulating elements within your components view. Okay. But if you come to the content child, it accesses elements that are projected into the components using ng content from a parent component. Okay. It is used when you want to interact with the content provided by the parent component. Okay. So in Angular, we have a concept is called ng content. Using this ng content, we can directly transfer some HTML element from one component to another component, like from parent to child component. Okay. So whatever content we have transferred, those elements should be projected in the ng content itself. Those projected content we can access using this content child. Okay, that is the only difference. View child directly we can access whatever elements present in the components. By using this content child, we can access only the projected content. Okay, so similarly we have a topic view children and content children. Okay, view child means we are accessing a single element. By using this view children, we can access the multiple group of elements. Okay. Similarly, the same thing is applicable for the content child and content children. We can move on to the next topic. What is HMA or hot model replacement? It is a development tool that allows developers to update models in an Angular application without reloading an entire page. So the benefit of HMR speed up the development, improving the productivity, retains the application state. So let me tell you exact the concept is. So in our Angular application, if you are considering one of the component, we have three sets, right? In the CSS, HTML, and TypeScript side. Whenever we made any changes, we used to save those changes, and the build is automatically will happen. It will be automatically reflected in our UI. But the thing is, it will refresh our complete page. Okay, so then obviously we will lose our existing state. Since this HMR is enabled, okay, so it will modify the certain areas only. It's not going to refresh the complete page. So as of now, this HMR is enabled for the CSS section. So like if I'm making any CSS change, once I saved, so the page not going to refresh. At the same time, whatever change I have applied in our CSS, it will be automatically reflected in our UI itself. Okay, we can move on to the next question. How to implement environmental setup in Angular? Okay, first let me tell you why this environmental setup is needed. So in the real-time application, once we completed our development, we have to move on the server. Okay, so in the corporate environment, they used to have a multiple servers. One is for production and another one is for the pre-production, another one is for the test QA. Okay, based on the company standard, they will maintain different environments. Okay, but the thing is, whatever environment they have, they all the environments we supposed to deploy the same code changes only. Here is the only difference is the data. So based on the different environments, we may load the different datas. Okay, for the different environments, they may have a different database, then obviously different API endpoint. Then data only varying, other things are same only. Okay, for handling those scenarios, we have to map different API URLs for the different environments. Similarly, we may have some key items. It may be email or some other key variables. So it will be varied based on the environments. Okay. For handling all those things, in our Angular side, we have a environment file. So defaultly, we can see this environment.ts and environment.development.ts. So additionally, if required, we can include n number of environment files. So let me show you from the application. See, we have this environment folder and we can see this environment.ts and this development.ts also. Okay. So additionally, I have included another one environment file with the name of QA. So if you look at here, I have included two variables. One is API URL and another one is display name. And here the rule is whatever key value you have included in our environment section, all the key values should be updated in all the environments. If you look at the QA, the title is varied. I can change this API URL. Similarly for here also. Okay. So once we set up these environments, hereafter whenever we make any build, we need to specify this environment tag also. Whatever environment value we are provided, based on that it will take the certain file and it will generate the build. So then it will be used for the deployments. Okay. We can move on to the next question. How to get the disabled form control value in reactive forms? Okay. It actually comes under the reactive forms. Anyway, we covered. So the thing is we need to use get raw value function. Okay. So we have another option. We can directly use values. If you used values, if you disabled any of the form control, that is not considered. If you are using this get raw value only, it will take all the values. Even though if it is disabled control, it will take those values. Okay. So we can move on to the next question. What is Material UI? Okay, so Material UI is a kind of third-party library for providing UI controls. It is more effective and it provides some rich look to our application. Okay, so maybe I can refer this note. Angular Material is the UI component library that helps developers to create consistent and attractive web application. It is based on Google's Material Design specification and is built to integrate with Angular features. Okay. And its features are reusable components include pre-styled components like cards, input data tables, and data pickers. Responsive design, it ensures application looks good across all the devices. Accessibility includes keyboard navigability, focus indicators, and high contrast themes. Theming, it is including pre-built themes and the ability to create some custom themes. Color pattern uses color patterns to communicate an application hierarchy, state, and brand. And we can see the benefits. The first one is speed of development of consistent user interface, helps to create attractive and functional web-based applications. It improves overall user experience. So in our application also, we mostly used the material UI components only. If you look at the HTML side, we can see this mat card, right? This mat card and table. We can start from here. This mat card, we have a header and footer section and mat form field, mat label, input. In this input tag also we have this mat input, right? This is comes from the material view only. And similarly for the date picker icons. So whatever components normally we use in your web application, we have all type of components in the material UI. If you want know more details, so if you want get the more details, you can look at the Angular material site. Okay. If you directly search with Material UI, you can see a different sites. Material UI is supported for Angular, similarly React and some other UI application also. Since we are in the Angular, we have to search with Angular Material UI. So they provided the separate site for individual technology. This is for Angular site. Okay. If you look at here, we can see this component section. See the autocomplete badge, button, card. Maybe if you want to use any of the control, just click here. Here you can see all those examples. Okay, they will provide you different examples. If you want to refer the code, just click this section, view code. Here you can get all the information like what we have to include in the HTML side and what we supposed to add in the TS side, then CSS. Okay, we have all list. Similarly, it is applicable for all the components. Okay, we can move on to the next question. What is content projection? NG content is a directive that allows you to project content from parent component to child component. This feature is useful for creating the reusable components. It helps you to get HTML like a functionality into your components. It makes more flexible to use components and pass data from one component to another component. It helps you to avoid repeating yourself and ensures that your code is both flexible and reusable. It's very simple, guys, like for transferring some HTML content from one component to another component, we can use this ng component directive. Okay, so whatever content we just transferred from our parent component, we have to project in our child component, right? For the projection purpose, we can use this ng content. That's it. We can move on to the next question. What are the new features in Angular 19? So as for today, current latest version is Angular 19. Okay, so Angular will release the new version for every 6 months. So in this new version, they will add some new features. Similarly, they will include some performance improvement. In some items, they will duplicate, but alternatively, they will provide some new features. Okay, so the same way in Angular 19 also, they made some changes and they added some new features. The first one is incremental hydration, event reply, standalone by default, strict standalone enforcement, linked signal, resource and RX resource APIs, hybrid rendering, warnings for unused standalone imports. So these are the major features introduced in Angular 19. So we can move on to the next question. How to deploy Angular application? Okay. So the thing is, we can deploy our Angular application in various environments such as cloud platforms, AWS, Azure App Services, Firebase hosting, and also in the normal IaaS also we can deploy our application. The first thing is we need to generate the artifact file by executing ng build command. Okay. So since we are handling a different environments, we need to specify the environment. Okay. This is one example. Ng build, we have to specify like configuration production, otherwise it will take the default file like environment.ts. But if you want make a build based on some different environment, then we have to specify like this. So once we have a artifact file, then we can deploy in the server or a cloud machine everywhere. So we can move on to the next question. What are the commonly used Angular CLI commands? Okay, so the first one is for generating a new application, ng new and our application name. And the second one is for generating the components, ng generate component. So instead of the generate, we can use the short form G. For the component short form, we can use C. Okay. And the next one is for services, ng generate service. And then we have to specify the service name. So here also we need to provide the component name. Okay. Okay. This same structure is applicable for all the files. And then ng generate ES, this is for service. Ng generate P, it's for pipe. Ng generate G, it's for cards, Angular cards. Ng generate D, it's for a directive. Then for running the application, we can use ng serve and npm start. Okay. And the final one is ng build for generating the build file. Okay. And one question I have missed, that is server side rendering. So the server side rendering, it is the feature used for improve the application performance. It is a process that involves rendering pages on server, resulting in initial HTML content which contains initial page state. Once the HTML content is delivered to the browser, Angular initializes the application and utilize the data and it's contained within the HTML side. Okay. For adding this SSR in our application, we need to execute this command, or else when you are creating the new application, it will ask, do you want to include the SSR? That time we have to provide yes. That's it. Okay. So now we are in the end of the video. I hope this video is really helpful for you. In case if you have any doubts or clarification, please post in the comment box. And since it is the QA video, I covered questions with answers. Some areas I provided the explanation. But individually, if you are looking for more information for any of the topics, anyway, I have done the separate video for all the topics. Okay, so that you can refer in my channel and you can see that. If you difficult to find those videos, please let me know in the comment box. I will share those links. Okay, thank you. Thanks for watching.